Welcome to the Distinguished Physical Education Podcast. This is Gary Zaharatos. The PE teachers in Denver Public Schools are halfway through the Distinguished Physical Education course. My colleague Jen and I have been enjoying facilitating the sessions, and we are excited to be planning a session for the 2025 school year. Anyone who is interested in learning more about the course and how you can receive credits towards renewing your teaching license can sign up to be notified of updates using the link in the notes to this episode. You can also always email me at gary@distinguishedpe.com if you have any questions on how the PE teachers in your district can enroll in the course. Today, I'm speaking with Sam Horton. Sam has spent 7 years in education, focusing on physical education, and he is the primary PE and swimming lead at Walliscote Primary School in Stourbridge, England. Sam was recently recognized for his role in bringing the Swim England National School Swimming Award to his school. Sam oversees both swimming and physical education and constantly strives to implement effective practices so that students have the best opportunities to succeed and develop a love and passion for physical activity. He is also a big advocate of children building their social and emotional skills through sportsmanship, leadership, and teamwork, and has created the entire curriculum for both of the subjects that he teaches. In this episode, we discuss the importance of having high expectations for student behavior and strategies to achieve a strong learning environment. We talk about various ways to enhance student engagement and motivation, how to differentiate for students' needs using the STEP approach, the I, We, You instructional method, how to plan lessons and units, and other topics. And now I bring you Sam Horton. Sam, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So I know that a core belief of yours is that in order to maximize student learning, teachers must first build an effective learning environment. In what ways do you create and maintain an inclusive environment for students, especially those who have varying ability levels or even language barriers?
So for me, environment is number one priority. So before you can even start your learning, before the children can even start that lesson, you've got to have the environment put in place. So what I mean by that is that the environment is getting the ground rules embedded, and whatever you say goes. It's all about building a positive environment for the children to allow learning to commence. I'm very much a big advocate of we are supporting one another. Whatever children I've got within my lesson, we bring in peer support, scaffolding from the teacher as well. You've got to make sure that you're bringing clear demonstrations. Love of learning approach as well is very, very important for me. So what I mean by that is that I don't want children to have fun in my lesson. And that might sound a bit odd. And what I mean by that is if they are just messing around and just kicking the ball around and they've got to try and strike the ball and pass it to the partner and they're just kicking it, whatever they want, doing whatever they want, that's not what I want in my lesson. Do that at break time, bring that exploring at break time. All I'm about is, can they physically show me? Can they have that deeper understanding as well for that key question? That's the kind of love of learning I want. And you'll see that children have a massive smile on the face because they can see that they are improving. On top of that is, as a teacher, you've got to be a motivator as well. So inclusivity for me is about giving every single child the opportunity. And that's where that environment comes in. So visual aids for some children that might benefit them. Maybe a great adept child working with a working below child might benefit them as well. None of this will work if you as a teacher have got low expectations. It comes hand in hand. You've got to have a strong environment and high expectations, glue it together, and that becomes a good quality environment for all children, the opportunity to learn.
I couldn't agree more with what you said. And I also love the fact that you recognize that it's a combination of all of those things, right? You can't just have high expectations for their behavior and then not differentiate for students' needs or not be a teacher that's motivating or that provides students with activities that they're going to want to engage in. So it's a combination of all of those things, which is what really makes a strong and effective learning environment.
100%. And this is only just because I'm an experienced PE teacher now, an experienced lead. A few years ago, when I first started out as a sports coach, I would have got a lot of these things wrong. And I think the only reason why I'm so good at finding this stuff now is just comes through just years and years of doing it day in, day out on the job. It takes time.
One of my favorite things about getting to talk to so many different people on this podcast is that none of us, myself included, are afraid to admit the mistakes that we made when we were younger teachers. And I think it's really beneficial that teachers who listen hear that, because they know that we weren't doing these things exactly the way that we're describing them from day one. It took a lot of trial and error. So one of the goals for these conversations that I have is that teachers realize that this is a learning process, and hopefully things that they hear myself or my guests say, they might avoid making that same mistake, or at least if they make that mistake, they might recognize it right away as that thing that Sam talked about, and then they have a solution to it, as opposed to making a mistake for several months of a teaching year and not knowing any strategies on how to get out of it.
Well, it's that kind of thing, is that you've got to self-reflect as a teacher. And as a teacher, it's all about prevention. You've always got to try and be one step ahead. And we all know that what really works well with children is structure. So you've got to be repeat it. A few things like, for example, if a child doesn't follow instruction, then they get, put into, we call it reflection timeout, that, they begin warnings and reflection time. And that's our behavior system. But they've got to understand that the reasons why they're in there as well. So when the child does come out of reflection time, they need to repeat it back to you. What was the reason why he was in there? And that's where I use my rules, my ground rules. I have 5 ground rules for my PE lessons, and 3 of them are already embedded within the school. So the school rules are follow instruction, keep my hands and feet to myself, use nice words only. And my 2 is no shouting out. And the other one is whether you win or lose, show respect to others through good sportsmanship. So those are my things that I've get embedded. But what I like to do is, like I say, you've got to make sure it's a positive environment for all children. So when they come out of reflection time, you put a positive spin onto it as well. Which rule did you break? Yeah. Okay. You need to make sure you don't break that next time, and go, come on, let's get back into it. Because I think what's really important as well, by putting that positive environment in, is that you want children to have that love and passion for physical education. Because if you don't have that there, then they won't want to carry on later on in life, because we want that longevity, don't we?
That has to be one of the top 3 goals of any effective or high quality physical education program, is that we're instilling the love of activity in students so that they want to engage in activity for the rest of their lives.
100%.
Speaking of motivation, I get a lot of questions from teachers on what they can do to motivate students to participate more consistently in their classes. Can you share some strategies that you use to keep students engaged in PE class, especially those who might not gravitate towards physical activity?
I'm a content creator, so the first thing you need is structure. I think everything needs to have a purpose. If you're going to go in there, a disorganized teacher with no planning in place, no scheme of work, nothing in place, then you're letting the children fail due to the teacher itself. So I think structure is a very big, important thing. We do something that's called the I, we, you approach. So the I is that clear demonstration. We is the scaffolding from the teacher. We do is your peer-on-peer support, and you is the independent learning. So what I do is my skill development, my 15-minute slot of just focusing on whatever they are working on. When it comes to the you approach, that's where I bring in challenges, fun challenges. I could make up, for example, as if we're working on chest pass, bounce pass, overhead pass in netball, my you approach, my independent learning is I could have some gates, 2 cones of the same colour, 2 cones same colour, 2 cones same colour. You and your partner pass the ball, run over to another gate and pass the ball again. And the challenge could be you're going against pairs, so they think this fun aspect's coming in. Said in 1 minute you got to count your passes. Everyone's against each other. All the pairs against each other. So they're thinking, oh wow, I'm going to go against all my friends. But the thing is though, what they don't see is you've just worked on whatever that may be. When it comes to the you approach, as the teacher, thinking, are they bringing agility? Are they bringing non-verbal cues? Are they bringing verbal cues? Are they bringing a correct chest pass? Is it arms, wrists, and fingers aimed towards the target? All the things what they should be bringing in. So that's the great thing about it. They're having fun, but you as the teacher, you are just doing your AFL and just checking what they remember, really. So I think that's very important. And step method's very, very good as well. So space, task, and equipment people. That will really benefit them as well, because that will really help them engage the children, because you are working on your great depth all the way down to your working below. So you've got to make sure that you set it at the right level. Because if you've got working below children and you just design a great depth lesson and you don't know and you haven't got the skills to quickly adapt it, you'll notice children start misbehaving because you've just designed a lesson that is too challenging for them. So you've got to set it at the right level. I think the other things as well, I think I said it before, is that having a great depth child, potentially working with a working below child when you do peer on peer, that all really benefits that working below child because the greater depth child will upskill them. What will happen with that greater depth child is that you're working on their emotional and social skills as well, because you're working on their leadership, their communication, teamwork. So the greater depth will still learn something from there. So those are some things I would start using. And the other thing was really beneficial, specific praise. Instead of you just saying, well done, Charlie, that's not really specific enough. Well done, Charlie, for fully extending your arms, reaches his fingers, aimed towards the target. That's more specific for the child. And the great thing about it is if that's the teaching point that you are drip feeding and right this second, the other children in his group will go, I know what I need to work on. So it really does link. House points is really beneficial. So house points, Gryffindor and stuff like that, bringing Harry Potter kind of thing. House points will be really beneficial because they're getting rewarded. Star of the week certificates, prize box. There's loads of little things that you can bring in to make it really exciting for the children and keep them engaged.
The theme that I'm noticing so far in this conversation is how important it is to differentiate for the needs of students. It's not just one technique or method that's going to work for everybody. It's that we need to have many different ideas and implement lots of different strategies in order to either hold students accountable for behavior, for on-task behavior, or to motivate students to participate in a lot of the activities that we have planned. I love what you said too about specific feedback. One thing that I found too that's really motivating for students is when the teacher provides them with feedback and gives them a specific next step, and then has the student own that next step. So the teacher can say something to the student like, you did such a great job of stepping when you perform the chest pass. Next time I come around, I want to see you keep those elbows up. And then, obviously, as a teacher, number one, you can't remember 30 different next steps that you just gave the students. But if you ask the student the next time you come around, what was that next step that I gave you the last time I saw you? Now the student is, number one, owning that next step. And then the second thing, just like you mentioned, is there are other students who are around who are going to hear that academic language, and they might even remind themselves, even though, Sam is talking to Gary right now about what his last next step was, somebody next to me is going to say, oh yeah, that's right, I do need to keep my elbows up. And then they're going to correct their form as a result as well. Could you share a little bit? You said something about step, and I want to dig a little bit deeper into that because that's something new that I've heard of. I wonder if there's a connection that I can make to something in our effective practices.
So the step method is a way of basically breaking things down in 4 stages. So you got space, task, and equipment, people. So the space, making a big space could be easier for the task. Making a small space might be harder, but sometimes it works either way. Task could be send and receive the ball to one another, but then the greater depth one, piggy in the middle, basically. So now you've got a defender, so they're in the way. So you just altering the task slightly. Equipment could be big ball, small ball, 1 ball, 2 balls, 3 balls. And the people could be, I'm passing to you, you and me are passing to each other in a non-competitive way. And then the other bit could be a competitive way, now bringing a defender. Or I could do overload, instead of 3v3, I could do 5v3.
I love that, and I can't wait to share that with teachers. When I talk about differentiation with the PE teachers that I work with, I usually will talk about how you can differentiate content, process, and product. And I think to a lot of folks, that just sounds like too textbook. It's too boring. I love the way that you broke it down in that step process because it aligns with all of the different ways that you can differentiate for the needs of students. It's beneficial if teachers take kind of like a customer service approach with their students, to say something to them or to ask them, what is it that I can provide for you today in order to help you experience success in this activity? And it can be any one of those 4 categories. It can be that students want a different piece of equipment to use. It can mean that they want a larger or a smaller target to throw at, or a shorter or further distance from that target. You gave lots of great examples too. So that's something that I'm going to use. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, I try to bring in, if you was observing my lesson, there's quite a lot, like you say, there's quite a lot of elements that I bring in all at the same time. So I would bring the step method in, but I bring the IWU approach as well. And I bring in that strong environment. And like I say, there's a lot of things that I bring into my environment. It's not just ground rules. It's that positivity. It's bringing that positive experiences about love of learning. There's a lot of things that I bring in. And the other thing is that active learning time is so important. It's practice and practice and practice some more. So for example, if I've got 6 small groups of children, why am I stopping the entire class right now? You should only stop the class when it's a brand new skill, or around 75 to 80% of your class not getting it. You stop it very briefly, go over the skill and do it again. So your job is to really focus on getting rid of those misconceptions as quickly as possible. And like I say, the only reason why my children excel is because my expectations are so high. If I've got 6 groups, I'll speak to one group like, this group's got it, so I jump onto the next skill. But group 2, they're not on that next skill yet because I haven't seen it. So I just speak to one group at a time while the other 5 groups are still going at it, because its activity levels need to be really, really high to allow children to be competent and confident within the skill. And I call it level up teaching. So level up teaching is that you are teaching the skill and the drill at the same time. The simple example would be level 1. All I want is the child to run to a cone. So they run around the cone, high five a partner. So they're bringing running skills, they're bringing agility around the cone and bringing high five, and join the back line. That's level 1. Level 2 is zigzag through the cones. Level 3 is zigzag through the cones, pick up the beanbag, run back. Level 4 could be the challenge, zigzag through the cones, throw the beanbag in the hoop, come back. So you are teaching the skill and the drill one level at a time, so you're preventing cognitive overload. Because if I said to a child, we're going to go in and out the cones, you're going to zigzag from the cones, don't forget to show agility, get the beanbag, throw the beanbag, get into the start position. You need to be super close for your agility. It's just way too much. So you are how I design the lessons within my school. You're allowing every single child to succeed.
You're a busy person when this lesson is going on, right? I think what some teachers think, especially brand new ones, is that once the beginning instruction part of the lesson is over, teaching students a skill and giving them the expectations for the activity, once students are engaged in that activity, that the teacher's job is kind of done, right?
Yeah. You take a step back.
You get to step back a little bit. The kids get to enjoy the activity. But what you're telling me is that you are constantly circulating throughout the gym. You are checking for students' understanding. Sometimes you're giving feedback in small groups. Other times, if you see like that there's a general misunderstanding, 75 or 80% of the students are having a common misconception, you're going to pause the entire class and correct that. You have all these different tools at your disposal, and you use them at the right moments during a lesson.
Well, it's like I say, when we go back to the I-we approach, you do that. I is that clear demonstration. The we part is where a lot of inexperience, I was one of them. The reason why, so my journey basically, my school, Williscote Primary School, is I was 4 years a sports coach. Then I was 3 years ago, I got promoted as a PE teacher. Then 2 years ago, I got promoted as the PE and swimming coordinator. So I run the whole of it. So I'm pleased that I've done up the whole that journey, because all these issues, errors in my delivery, I was that guy. So you do that clear demonstration. The we part is what a lot of us do. You go, okay, 3, 2, 1, go, and you take a step back. And then as the teacher thinking, why are they getting this wrong? Why are they getting this wrong? And it's took me years to realize the answer is, it's me, it's the teacher's fault. When it comes to the we part, you as the teacher should be bringing in scaffolding and supporting all the children. And when you're seeing children who are getting it right, you do that. We do. Okay, you get it right. You're a mini teacher. You're a mini teacher. You're a mini teacher. Now I've got 5 mini teachers plus myself. We've got 6 people now helping out all the children. And that's what it's all about. It's a baton effect. So like I say, it's the Tom Sheridan thing. It's rose and shine. And it's a baton effect. So when I say I, we, you, It's I, we, you. What? I, we, you. And it's a battle effect until you get it right. So normally my lesson is around about 6 teaching points. My first half of my skill development is your first 3 teaching points with the I, we, you. And then my second part of the skill development is I change the formation slightly. So they're not, standing still, it's staying that same formation. And then I do teaching points 4, 5, and 6. And teaching points 4, 5, and 6 is another I, we, you approach. So I normally have 2 you approaches within my lesson. And yeah, it's a lot of tools that I throw into my lesson, but it's just because I'm at that stage now as a teacher. I can do that. I can juggle it. It seems like second nature to me now. But if I did this 5 years ago, said, Sam, throw all this in, I'm like, I'm just going to stay in the corner. I haven't got a clue what to do. It takes years. It does take time. Because the whole teaching, what I've noticed, is just a journey.
Yeah, it's all about being reflective on your own practice and knowing when you need to make some adjustments. If something's not working, you want to be able to reflect on that. See if it was something that, as a teacher, did we miscommunicate it? Or is the activity too difficult or too challenging for students to experience success in it? So yeah, a lot of it just comes down to, at the end of a lesson or at the end of a day, being reflective and saying, if I were to teach this lesson all over again tomorrow, what are some changes that I might need to make in order for my students to experience success?
And what I used to do, and I know that some teachers have done this in the past, you wait until the very, very end of your lesson, sit them all down, go, what are we doing today? What was it doing? What do we do this bit? What did that bit? And then you go, okay, I've just asked 6 questions for them. They don't know. It's because you haven't done any checking for understanding throughout the whole entire lesson. I check for understanding all the time. And my head teacher said to me, check for understanding all the time. I do loads of different approaches. I say, you say, I do that kind of thing. This is my lower years, my 5, 6-year-old children. We need to use eyes. Why do we need to use eyes? So we don't bump into anybody. Why do we need to use eyes? Look for a space. We need to go in and out of friends. Stuff like change direction means agility. So you're bringing your vocab as well. And I do a lot of that. And then I do a lot of cold calling as well. Johnny, what does this one mean? What does that mean? And if he doesn't know, I'll go to the child who does know, then I'll go straight back to him. It's all about getting things embedded. By the end of your scheme of work or by the end of your lesson, obviously you want them to progress all the time, but you want them to really be able to show you, but really have that cognitive side, have that deeper understanding, the reasons behind it.
Sam, I'm smiling over here. I'm so glad that you and I connected, because one thing that I talk quite a bit about with my friends on this podcast is that physical responses, physical progress is certainly welcome. This is physical education class. We want students to get better at physical skills, but that's not the end of the line. It's that cognitive piece that connects back with standards. Here in the US, we have state standards. We also have national standards. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, which ones our teachers use. I usually advise teachers to just pick whichever language from a national or a state standard is best going to fit their goals for that day or the activities that they have planned. But students also need to be able to articulate their standards-based learning. We shouldn't have a PE class where students are silent the entire time, and then when their teacher comes to pick them up or their parent asks them what they learned in PE class, they either say, if you're lucky, I dribbled a basketball, or they just say the name of the game we played. We played basketball today. That's not what the standard says. That's not what you were trying to teach them. And you only get to that conclusion where students can actually articulate what they learned. Well, today we learned all of the different cues for dribbling a basketball. I'm supposed to use my finger pads. I'm supposed to keep my eyes up, etc. We only get to that conclusion if the teacher is clearly communicating what those expectations are, connecting all of the activities back to them, and then all of the things which you just described, which in a nutshell are circulating around the gym and continuing to remind students and to check for understanding and to provide feedback on what you want them to be able to do physically and articulate at the end of the class.
I mean, it's that kind of thing as well, where the separation, like what you're saying there, the separation is very important. I don't want the parents to say to them, go, what have you learned today? Basketball. No, that's the sport. The children need to know, which I've put a big focus, big emphasis within our school, that they need to know the difference between the topic and what they're actually learning. So their topic would be attack and defend, but what they're learning is shadowing as a defender and bringing agility to go in and out of the attacker and stuff like that. So they're really be very specific with their knowledge. So I want that separation of topic and what they're actually learning for that lesson.
Another thing that I'll just add on to that too is that in order for students to be able to articulate that learning, they need to have a good understanding of what the lesson objectives are. The teacher needs to clearly communicate them and then check for students' understanding. Sometimes I'll be observing a lesson and the teacher communicates the objective and I'm trying to write it down and they've moved on to the next part of the lesson before I can even write it down or capture it on my computer. So checking for students' understanding early in the lesson to make sure that they understand what success is going to look like that day is a really important and sometimes overlooked step in communication of an objective. I'll give an example of something really cool that I've seen a handful of times. Some teachers will be so clear on the objective that they have a task for their students, and that is that if a guest enters the room, a student goes up to that guest, whether it's the principal or a visiting classroom teacher, and they will welcome them into the gym and tell them what they're learning today. So they won't just say, hey, welcome, Mr. Horton, we're playing basketball today. They'll say, hey, Mr. Horton, welcome today. Today we're learning how to dribble and we're describing how to dribble a basketball. I use my finger pads, I keep my eyes up, I keep the ball at waist height, etc. And I think that's just such a cool way to like make students own their learning, and they know that they have to understand what the objective is because it could be anybody, right? When somebody comes in the gym, the teacher could say, okay, it's Gary's turn today. He's going to go welcome our visitor. So I better know what that objective is.
I mean, the reason why I'm smiling while you're talking is that's the whole reason why I did it as well. my head teacher came in. I was like, George, you need to stop telling us basketball. You need to tell the topic and what we're learning. That's the whole reason I did it. And I'll tell you what really will benefit you as well. Having your topics in each classroom as well, so the children clearly understand what they're being taught for that half term or whatever. I think that's really good. What I try to do is I really try to get the children involved. Like I put my long-term plan, I put my progression map visually on my board so any children can walk past and go, oh, this is what we're learning. Oh, those are the skills. So I really like to try and get them involved with the whole process, really. But yeah, it's very important to get that put in place. Like what I do is within the first 10 seconds of my lesson, we are in our warm-up straight away. I get them engaged so quickly. We do about 5-minute warm-up. Normally it is, if it's on week 1's main scheme, I just bring that into week 2. So it gives them a chance to show me what they know. And on top of that, it helps you with gap filling as well. Any children that didn't quite get it the week before, it gives you a chance as a teacher to really misconceptions, fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. And then after my 5-minute warm-up, I go straight onto my board. We do a learning objective. We do our specified knowledge, which is broken down to 3 stages. We call it remember twos. And then we do vocabulary. So by the end of that couple of minutes, children clearly know what the learning objective, they know the specified knowledge, and they know their 3 or 4 vocabulary words for that lesson, which clearly links with your learning objective remember twos. And that remember twos, once you've ticked off the remember twos, you actually tick off your learning objective. You have such a great deal of passion when it comes to lesson planning, and this has become an area of expertise for you. What are some common mistakes that teachers make when they're planning, and how can they avoid them? I'm very tunnel vision on the content created within my school. I have brought resources in the past, and I think the common error would be, I don't think it's detailed enough. My lesson plans are very detailed, and I think if you plan for success, you're going to get rewards, you're going to get quality results. So I don't think they're detailed enough.
Earlier, you mentioned having a sense of urgency, and now you're talking about having lessons that are detailed enough and maybe even to an extent over-planned, right? I find that one of the most effective things that a teacher can do when lesson planning and then implementing that lesson is to communicate to students a sense of urgency. If a teacher meets their student at the door and they say something to them like, Hey everybody, welcome to PE today. We've got lots of time, so just kind of walk in nice and slow, etc. We'll get to our warm up in just a few minutes. Feel free to get some water if you want or use the bathroom. As opposed to what you're describing, which is having detailed lesson plans that are so packed that if we don't stay on task today, if we don't behave the way that we're supposed to according to our expectations, if we don't move quickly from one activity to the next, we're not going to be able to fit everything in today. When the teacher greets their students at the door and says something like, "Welcome to PE today, everybody. We have so many things to get done. I have 3 really exciting activities. And in order for us to get to that third one, we really need to get started. So first thing you're going to do is enter the gym and engage in this intro activity." And then students are going right from the get-go. I think that sense of urgency really helps with keeping students on task, keeping up that high level of excitement in order to motivate students. Every student, especially the younger students, want to know what that third activity is. So they're going to want to show on-task behaviors in order to get to it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, going back to that question, the systems I've kind of brought in the past, I'm trying to do a 1 hour's lesson. This is a few years ago when I didn't have the knowledge to create my own systems. I'm trying to teach a 1 hour lesson, and what I've got in front of me is literally about half an hour. And on top of that, I've seen assessment grids where because I teach a class of 30 and I teach the entire school. And I've got an assessment grid, which is like 80 things that I've got to assess each child on. It's just like, it's unrealistic. So my lesson plans, I think, is high quality stuff. It's very universal. Anybody could pick that up and know that they can deliver it. Somebody who hasn't got the knowledge like I have to create a scheme work, they don't know the reasons behind it. So I've created the entire curriculum, and my vision and values links with my long-term plan. It links with my medium-term plan. It links with my short-term plan, links with my progression map. That links with my end documents. That links with the vocabulary. That links with national curriculum. Everything links. So you could go onto my short-term plan, ready for your lesson, and you can clearly see there's a learning objective, there's specified knowledge, there's equipment, there's assessment to know exactly what you're assessing on that lesson. There's key question already there. There's teaching points which drip feed clearly breaks it down. There's got the progression of red box, yellow box, green box. So you know straight away that I've got one in front of me. So this is attack and defend in years 1. Learning objective is, can I show attack and defend in team games? Specify analogies. Remember to get into the defender position and show change direction, agility, and to shadow the attacker. And I could go on to a great depth child now. They need to move towards the ball to receive it. A expected child is move in line with the ball to receive it. A working towards a child is roll equipment in different ways. You can clearly see the definition straight away. So when I'm assessing the children who basically, how we do it within my school is once you've ticked it all off, you receive a certificate to take home with. So when I'm assessing the children, you know straight away that I could give that 21 and they could easily know what a great depth child, what a working blow child, what is an expected child. And you could even give that to a non-PE teacher and they will have the same results as you. I've even broken it down into how to sort out the formation. So you even know how to put your cones out and where the pupils should be as well. And you can easily see my level up teaching. I'll give you an example. One of them is called Protector. Protector is going to help you with defender precision, reaction, and agility. Working in small groups, make a circle with a defender in the middle. Children on the outside attempt to hit the ball in the middle, rotate defenders. Children on the outside attempt, this is the next stage, children on the outside attempt to steal the ball in the middle, if tag swap places. Challenge, include 2 defenders. How many times can you steal the ball in 1 minute? So you can clearly see there's a step-by-step method. So you're preventing that cognitive overload.
I'm connecting with what you said about those specific cues because you're being very transparent with students about exactly what it is that you want them to learn that day. You are preventing that cognitive overload by giving them little bits and pieces at a time. And then you're going to constantly refer back to those cues when you are assessing and giving feedback to students as well.
Yes. So when I'm doing that, like specific praise, well done for getting to the defending position. Well done for showing agility skills, change direction around the cone. Oh, well done for shadowing the attacker. So you always keep going back to that. And the great thing about it is because you've got your learning objective and your vocab on your whiteboard, it will always be there for the children as well.
You just gave some really great examples of planning a lesson itself. What about when planning a unit? What are essential components that you would recommend that teachers incorporate into each of their units as a whole, as opposed to just lessons, in order to make sure that they are engaging for all students?
Well, first of all, you need to figure out what the unit is, and then having that subject knowledge and the research behind it. Like, for example, I haven't just become a experienced content creator overnight. This has been a 7-year process, and I've been planning for the last 7 years and making loads of poor lessons to get to the stage where I am. So I would say it's very, very important, whatever unit you are just about to cover, to get your research, get yourself on some courses, make sure your knowledge is decent on that. And it just needs to have a clear progression throughout. Normally my unit is about 6 weeks. It's a half term. So it needs to have a clear progression from weeks 1 to 6. Start off with a blank canvas, and then how I even start lessons is your end documents. So you need to see what are those 6 to 8 assessment criteria, what are you assessing on? And then you can just drip feed some of those throughout over the 6-week period. And if you're teaching invasion, don't go straight into send and receive in a game situation when they haven't even know how to send the ball to begin with. So you just need to make sure you clearly lay it out properly. I'll do a formative assessment at week 1. So it's your initial assessment, and a summative assessment on week 6. And it's sometimes you do it as a whole part whole as well, where you can just week 1, you can just show me what you know now without any scaffolding. And then when it comes to week 6, you do that again. And it is weeks 2 to 5, you break it down in stages. So you give them that opportunity. So that's another way you can do it as well.
It sounds to me like backwards planning is your friend. You know what you want your end goal to be, and then you backwards plan from there.
Yeah, it's got to be purposeful. So wherever you plan, if it's not purposeful, what is the point of being in there? You're not going to teach pipe jump in a invasion game, and that's for gymnastics. You know what I mean? It's just got to be purposeful.
I'm honored to have my first international guest on the podcast, Sam. So I'm kind of interested in how PE is taught differently in various places around the world. Are there any approaches in the UK that you think US teachers could adopt?
I don't know if the IWU is helpful with that, the IWU approach, and I mean level up teaching. But I listened to your podcast a couple of weeks ago with the assessment, and that is so very familiar with what I do. It's so detailed, that was. So, like I was saying to you before, because I'm the PE instrument leader in my school, I've so got tunnel vision. I don't even know what half the schools do around my area, so I'm so tunnel vision, so focused on getting that. So I'm not 100% certain how it's like in America. So I'm kind of very intrigued how the delivery is like in America. IRE approach, the step method, stuff like that. Active learning time is very important. And that is, for me, it's all about putting a teacher's head on and making sure that I always bring my A game and constantly strive to be the best version so the children can have the best opportunity. And that's what I do. So I'll be very intrigued. I kind of want to throw the question back to you, really.
I think my answer to that question, you tell me if it's similar by you. I think that PE is having a little bit of an identity crisis in the US at the moment. I think that we have so many teachers who want to do all of the things that you and I are talking about, and they want to provide these safe and comfortable environments for their students. They want to assess them on not just physical outcomes, but cognitive outcomes as well. They want to have a high quality PE program like you and I have been describing. And then I think that there's teachers who, through no fault of their own, based on probably just what they've seen in the past, whether it was the PE teacher that they had when they were in elementary school or middle or high school, or Sometimes when you're at a high school, for example, you have several PE teachers. So it's really hard to get everybody on the same page. You might come in and want to establish a really high quality PE program, but you're working with PE teachers who have been there for 15 or 20 years and they're used to doing things an old way. And that's a really difficult dynamic. So I don't know. I don't know if I have great answers to that question. I think that there's a little bit of an identity crisis going on.
Well, I've got two or three things that just popped in my head since you've been talking. Like one of them would be, we have a lot of sports coaching companies, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you have a lot of sports coaching companies where within my school, I'm the full-time PE teacher, and I've got a full-time PE teacher with me as well. And we are just the PE teachers for Woolscope Primary School. But you have some sports coaches that will go to a school for a couple of days and they'll disappear for another school for a couple of days and so on. I think it's very, very tough for those kind of member staff because I'm full-time, I can build a relationship with the children. And you do get that. And unfortunately, you have young 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are sports coaches. You can have someone who's the wow factor. You could have someone who's not so wow. And the negative thing about that is there's an imbalance. But what I have noticed with my children, and I thought it was a COVID issue, I think, like I said to you, the physical side and the cognitive side is a massive thing. And I thought, like I said, I thought it was a COVID answer, but COVID's, it was a couple of years ago now, and we have issues with our emotional, social side with the children. Like when I started 7 years ago, if a child asks for a ball, give me the ball, please. Child will give it back. You have children fall out over situations as minor as that. So for me as a teacher, it's not just being their PE gym teacher anymore. My job is to help them and communicate of how to solve a mini problem because they haven't got the social skills to deal with it. So we do have that issue sometimes. And that's where I really try to put a big emphasis on building the profile within my school setting. Sportsmanship is so, so important. Respect, kind words. Well done if you won 7-0, shake the hands. Well done if you lose 7-0, shake hands. It's very important to have a winning mentality even when you lose. So that's the big thing that I try and put in, day out.
One thing that I try to emphasize with the teachers that I work with is our standards-based social skills. So oftentimes what I'll see happen, or mostly it's through resources that I find on social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, people will post videos saying that they're working on sportsmanship, but it's not actually clearly communicated, like what you and I were talking about earlier. If a parent or a building leader were to ask a student what they learned in class today, in some of these examples, the students wouldn't say, we learned how to win and lose in socially appropriate ways, like you're describing. Do you have lessons where the physical skill is not your main goal and that you are teaching students just a social skill?
Yes. Our topic is called OAA. So it's outdoor adventurous activities. So it's about orienteering, map work, leadership, teamwork, emotional, social skills, communication, nonverbal. There's all that aspects in, and it is purely focusing. I purely focus on getting sportsmanship at the highest level embedded. But even times where your lesson isn't as focused as that, it's always, whatever topic I teach, it's always hidden sportsmanship underneath. But in that topic, OA, you do put a lot of focus on it. So it's allowing children the opportunity to have a voice, because you know that you always get children in your lesson who are naturally leaders. So it's the ones that don't have that opportunity, you kind of push it and go for it. But just talking about that very briefly, so something else about that. We have sports leaders within our school setting, like young leaders, and what their job is to be in charge of a zone during lunchtime and stuff like that. And what's so great about that is you get some children who are a bit timid, a bit quiet, and they really do come out their shell and they really do build their confidence, really does start to excel. And it's so good because you have like 10, 11-year-olds telling the 6, 7-year-olds, we're going to play duck, duck, goose and stuff like that. And it's so lovely to see how much they progress in such a short period of time. So that's another thing that we really do put a lot of focus on, that social, emotional side.
I think that's one of the most rewarding things that a teacher can see, is to see a student who maybe isn't so inclined to enjoying physical activity start to enjoy it as a result of the environment that the teacher and students created. Sam, I know that it's getting late over by you, and I really, truly appreciate your time. I do want to ask you, since I have such an expert here and a veteran teacher, is if you could give one piece of advice to PE teachers, whether they're brand new or whether they've been teaching for a long time, what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
Environment is the number one priority. Without a strong, embedded environment, there's no point even starting the lesson. Get the environment right, and you will see how fast the children will improve their skills and how quickly they will respect the teacher. Whatever you say as a teacher, you must always follow it through.
Tell me whether you agree with this or not. I think that when it comes to lesson planning, most teachers spend the overwhelming majority of their time planning for the instruction, for the activities, for the connection to the standards. I don't know how much time teachers spend during their lesson planning actually visualizing and putting language to what they want their expectations to be for student behavior in the class. In order to have such a strong environment, you need to purposefully plan for that. And you need to think about how you want to communicate your vision of your environment to your students. Is that something that you would recommend that teachers spend time planning, or is there a different way that you come about this vision that you have for this strong learning environment?
We are a very high expectation school. And the reason why my environment is so good is because we've had so much support from our leaders within our school. We've had so much CPD, we've had so much training, we've had so much e-learning, we've had so much support. I'll give you an example of what's really worked well, and it has been planning with the environment. So those 5 rules, like I said earlier, I brought in 5 rules in at the start of the academic year. And for my lower year children, I treated it as, I'm not going to teach my 6, 7, 8-year-olds, sit down, I'm going to talk to you and ramble on for hours, ages and ages. These are the 5 rules. That's not going to be embedded in the head. So we played a game, and it was corners. I put one rule there, a rule there, a rule there on the wall, and like this. Okay, children, stand up, find space, stand like a scarecrow, frozen scarecrow. I want you to go in and out of your friends, use your eyes, and then going in and out of the friends, showing agility, and then you shout out something like, what do you need to do, children? What do you need to do if I say you need to go into a corner? And they all run over to follow instruction, because they followed the instruction, brilliant. And they come back in and out your friends, in and out your friends. If I just push somebody, what do you do? And they run over and they put their hands on the head, and now they're going to keep my hands and feet to myself and stuff like that. So what you're doing is you're getting your ground rules embedded, the environment with the children in a fun aspect game, and it's going to get embedded a lot quicker. And what I did with the older children, the 9, 10, 11-year-olds, we sat them down and said, these are our rules in assembly. We did like a little mini assembly. These are our rules. Here's the consequences. If you don't follow the rules, you're going to be given a warning. You're going to be put in reflection time. And if you do follow the rules, you're going to have house points. You're going to get stickers. You're going to get prize box. So they clearly understand, if you follow the rules, you're going to get praised. If you don't follow the rules, you as the teacher always follow it through, and there's consequences. So with anything, if you want something to be successful, you have got to be organized and plan it. And like I say, the only reason why my environment is so strong is because I've put so much research into it. I've put so much time with my leaders within the school, training all of us staff up. So if I didn't have any training as leaders, if I didn't put any effort in, if I didn't do any research by going on the website and checking the Rose and Shine method, then my environment will be absolutely shocking now. So you've got to be able to be organized, and you've got to be prepared. And it's all to do with prevention. As a teacher, you always got to be one step ahead.
Those were 2 great examples that you gave of how you teach your rules to the youngest students and also to your upper elementary. I'm assuming that that's something that you would do like first or second day of school. Have you also had to bring those activities back at a later date with classes who maybe haven't been following your expectations as well as you like?
Yes, I have. With 1-year group recently. When I say recently, Monday this week. every Monday this week. All my year groups absolutely fine. I had to do it with a year group. That they're a challenging year group anyway. And I really went through them. They wrote I said my task was during registration, write down the 5 rules for me now. Write down the 5 rules. And I said, this stops now. I said to him, last week's lesson was an absolute joke. You were not following the rules. This stops now. Cut the story short, they were golden for me. And sometimes you got to understand as a teacher, you are teaching young children. They need a reset button sometimes. But it's poor practice if I allow that to happen. If you are constantly fighting through lessons week in, week out, your environment's not embedded. And for me, as a teacher, the issue what I used to do is, like I say, this is through years of experience. I would have 5, 6, 7, 8 lessons in a row where the lessons have been an absolute nightmare. They're not working out. And I'm like thinking, what's going on? Are you leaving work frustrated? You're going, what's going on? What's going on? And it's took me all these years that it's my fault as the teacher. The reason why it's not working is because I haven't got my environment embedded. So the next lesson when I teach them, if in a 1-hour lesson, they've literally had 2 minutes of my lesson plan, but 58 minutes of establish. Come back. Follow instruction, get into line, voices off, talking, come back. If you practice that about 50, 60, 70 times, okay, sit down, eyes on me. Okay, you're talking, come back, let's do it again. Keep doing that, get structure, get the environment right. Give that 2 or 3 weeks. I bet you they will listen. Because it's quite challenging for me. I've been a PE teacher here. I don't know what it's like in America, but like, because I teach every single class, I'm not their classroom teacher, so I don't have them for every single second. So it does take a little bit longer to get things embedded for the children because you only have them for 1 hour. And then I'll go, bye-bye, I'll see you in a week's time. So it does take longer.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing that experience with teachers, because I think so many need to hear it, that they're not alone in the behaviors that they're experiencing from students. I think what a lot of teachers tend to do when they see off-task student behaviors is to speed up their lesson and get to the next activity, because they think, all right, students are being a little bit off task, a little bit disruptive right now, but if I just get to the next thing, then they'll be on task. They'll do what I'm expecting them to do. And we all know that that's not what happens, but those are mistakes that we've all made dozens and dozens of times when we were younger teachers. What teachers really need to do is slow the lesson down, scan the gym, and if that is not how you envisioned this portion of the lesson looking, then teachers need to have those resets in their back pocket, like you just mentioned. It could be practicing going back to spots on the gym floor. It could be practicing lining up in the hallway. Any of the things that you feel as a teacher that you need to see, you have to give students reps in order to have them follow those expectations.
Well, it's loads of things that I've got in over the years. 3, 2, 1, eyes on me. 3, 2, 1, hands up, hands down. And you literally, I've taught them that they need to put the hands up. And I'll say to them, put your hands down, eyes on me. If I don't have every single child with the eyes on me, I will keep my hand up. I will not move at all until it's done. I think an error what some people do go 3, 2, 1, and then every single child's going, what do you want me to do? So I think the good one is 3, eyes on me, 2, eyes on me, and 1. You give them so much opportunity because you're saying words in between the numbers. So you give them so much opportunity that they have to look at you. Or it could be, you can make anything. 3, start position. 2, start position. 1, go. Anything you can bring in. So little things like that. There's loads of things you can do. You can do the clap. And then everyone repeats. Or head, shoulders, knees, eyes, toes, whatever.
I wish that I did video for this podcast, because you have modeled all of these all of these techniques for us. So it's been a pleasure to see. Sam, before I let you go, just one last question. Are there any resources that you would recommend for effective practices in physical education?
Well, the thing that I really thought has been very beneficial is when you jump onto just governing bodies, any governing body, like we have, like Basketball UK, we have the FA for football, we have cricket, we have loads of different sports, and the governing bodies for the UK has always been very beneficial for the younger children. So I would just jump on stuff like that. Even just typing onto YouTube, go onto YouTube and just type away. There's so much amazing free advice on YouTube. And the other thing is jump into Amazon, go into Amazon, buy some primary, we call it primary, but for the lower age children, physical education, there's loads of stuff on there as well. Like I say, I'm an experienced content creator, but what I absolutely love and always will bring into my lessons is I love resources. I have resources. I look at it and go, how can I put my own stamp on it? I don't always go with a blank canvas. I do sometimes now through experience, but the only thing that's made me a strong content creator is by constantly looking at resources and go, wow, look at that, look at this, look at that, look at that. So that's my advice. And the other thing that I think would be really beneficial is go to a school that's close to you, see how they do it as well. Nothing beats you learning from other people. So go to their school, see how they do it, and then them to come over to your school, try and get some golden nuggets from each other. Maybe go to any meetings as well. We have loads of PE coordinator, PE lead meetings around here. Go to see them, and it's all about networking.
One of the most impactful things that teachers can do, like you mentioned, is to go observe other teachers teach. And I'm really lucky in my role as an instructional coach, I get to organize a lot of those. So we did one 2 weeks ago where we took 3 or 4 teachers to go see 2 other teachers. One, what we usually do is we'll meet before the first lesson, set some common goals so that teachers know what it is that they want to go observe for. Then we'll go observe a lesson at one school. We'll drive over and observe a lesson at another school somewhere close in the neighborhood. And then we'll do a debrief where we get to talk about how the goals that you identified for yourself were evident in those lessons, things that you would take from the teachers that you just observed, how you might want to modify them a little bit to more fit your own teaching style. But I've found that those have been some of the most powerful days of learning that I've ever been a part of. So I'm glad to hear you bring that up. Is there a place where people can find, or do you share online the things that you've created?
With mine, I'm creating the whole curriculum. So I do all the PE side and I do all the swimming side as well. I'm halfway through doing it at the moment. I've got about 75 to 80 medium-term plans to create and about 400 short-term plans as well. So it's a massive, massive job that I'm doing. It's by far the best thing I've ever done and by far the worst thing I've ever done because I'm very tired all the time. The reason why I do it is because like I say, I constantly strive to be the best version of myself, and I really do believe in the systems that I've created. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I'm on primary_PE_lead. And Instagram, I think it's Sam Horton, primary_PE lead. But if you just jump on Sam Horton PE on Google, you'll see absolutely loads of videos I've done with so many different experts within the field.
Sam, I appreciate you staying up late tonight. This was an absolutely fantastic conversation. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on, Gary. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.